Most ghost towns in California are not lost. They are quietly filtered out of search results, filtered out of conversation, filtered out of the version of the state that fits neatly on a screen. When you type their names, sometimes you get a park, or a vague desert label, or nothing at all. And that absence feels accidental, but it usually isn't. We like to imagine ghost towns as dramatic endings, a boom, a bust, or a few saloons collapsing in slow motion. In reality, many of them fade in ways that are administrative, environmental, or simply inconvenient. They don't vanish in a blaze of tragedy. They dissolve into paperwork, heat, distance, and silence. That's the uncomfortable part. These places are not just abandoned, they are unresolved. Some still have owners, some still collect property taxes. A few still have residents who prefer it that way. But the map version of California, coastal, efficient, profitable, doesn't know what to do with towns that no longer serve momentum. And one of these places, the most interesting one, isn't truly dead at all. It just stopped performing. If you're here for easy nostalgia, this isn't that. These are not cinematic backdrops waiting for a drone shot. They are economic aftershocks, they are environmental reminders, and they are decisions that kept compounding long after the gold ran out. If that kind of clarity is useful to you, stay with me. So let's count down. Number 10 feels like a place you're not supposed to want. Welcome to Drawbridge. Once a small settlement built on stilts in the marshlands near the Bay Area, Drawbridge had dozens of homes perched above tidal wetlands. Today, it is largely inaccessible, absorbed into protected land. On some maps, it barely registers. In others, it appears as empty marsh. Environmental regulations restrict access, and the ground itself has shifted over time. There are no services, no utilities, and certainly no jobs. The appeal is proximity. Here you are near one of the wealthiest regions in the country, yet you stand in silence. The catch is simple. The land is unstable, and the law is firm. You cannot rebuild without fighting both. Living near something like this would feel like standing beside a door that is permanently locked. Curiosity turns into frustration. Picture damp air carrying the scent of salt and mud, wooden beams tilting at uneasy angles, and distant birds cutting across a pale sky. Beautiful, yes, but welcoming, no, but no thanks. Would you fight nature and regulation for a view, or let it sink back into the marsh? Number 9 looks more straightforward, until it isn't. Welcome to Eagle Mountain. Built in the 1940s to support an iron mine, it once housed thousands of workers and their families. When the mine shut down in the 1980s, the population collapsed. The streets remain, many structures remain, but redevelopment plans over the years have stalled or shifted. Water access, environmental compliance, and land ownership complexities sit quietly in the background. On paper, it looks promising. There is infrastructure, there are roads. But in reality, infrastructure without industry becomes expensive maintenance. Jobs are scarce, services are distant, and bureaucracy is patient. The emotional cost is subtle. You start to feel like you're waiting for a future that never arrives. Imagine sunlight reflecting off empty school windows, heat rising from asphalt, and wind moving through a grid of streets designed for a crowd that will not return. It is orderly. It is hollow. Would you invest your life in a maybe? Number 8 feels like a bargain. Welcome to Bombay Beach. Situated along the shrinking Salton Sea, Bombay Beach is often described as having a few hundred residents. Homes have sold at prices that seem almost impossible for California. Property taxes are relatively low compared to coastal cities. For artists and independent spirits, that price tag can look like freedom. But the constraints are physical. Summer temperatures soar well past comfort. Air quality has at times been questioned due to exposed lakebed dust, and healthcare requires travel. Employment is limited, often seasonal or remote. The catch arrives slowly. The smell from the sea can drift in without warning, and the heat doesn't ask permission. Over time, you begin to measure your days not by opportunity, but by endurance. Picture a flat horizon glowing orange at sunset, warm air clinging to your skin long after dark, and a wind that carries both beauty and something metallic in its edge. Is affordability worth environmental uncertainty? Number 7 trades heat for distance. Welcome to Amboy. Once a lively stop along Route 66, Amboy now consists of a handful of structures and very few residents. It appears on maps, yet it feels like a punctuation mark rather than a town. Services are minimal, medical care requires significant travel. Employment options are nearly non-existent unless you create them yourself. The advantage is clarity. There is no traffic, no crowd, no competition. The downside is exposure. If your car fails, you wait. If your plan fails, you adapt. Emotionally, isolation begins as novelty and matures into responsibility. Picture a long stretch of desert road humming under the sun, a lonely sign standing against the sky, the kind of quiet that makes your own footsteps sound amplified. Would you call that freedom or simply distance? Number 6 offers preservation instead of potential. Welcome to Body. Often cited as one of the best preserved ghost towns in California, Body is maintained in a state of arrested decay as a historic park. In its 19th century peak, thousands lived there. Today it exists under state management, protected but not revived. Winters are harsh, access can be limited, and permanent residence is not an option. The benefit is authenticity. Buildings stand as they were left. The catch is finality. You are visiting a story that has already ended, and you are not allowed to write a sequel. Over time, that boundary becomes emotional. You can admire the past, but you cannot belong to it. Picture cold mountain air biting at your face, wooden floors creaking under careful steps, and dust resting undisturbed on old counters. It is honest. It is distant. Would you rather witness history or shape it? Number 5 blurs that line and welcome to Calico. Another former silver mining town, Calico has been reconstructed and operates as a county park attraction. Visitors walk boardwalks, shops operate seasonally, and history is packaged carefully. It is accessible, curated, safe. That safety is the trade-off. After hours, when the visitors leave, the town does not continue living. It pauses. Living near something like this might feel like residing inside a set after filming wraps. Everything is intact. Nothing is truly happening. Imagine warm wood under bright sun, the faint scent of food from a tourist stand, and laughter that fades when the gates close. Would you accept permanence without pulse? Number 4 becomes more demanding. Welcome to Panamint City. Tucked in rugged mountains west of Death Valley, Panamint City is often described as remote and difficult to reach. Access may require high-clearance vehicles or long hikes. Weather can shift quickly, and emergency response is far away. There are no utilities waiting for you. The appeal lies in effort. Few people make the trip. The cost is physical and logistical. Supplies must be planned, risks must be respected. Emotionally, this kind of place strips away excuses. You confront your limits directly. Picture thinner air at elevation, wind weaving through stone ruins, and your own breathing echoing off canyon walls. Would you trade comfort for challenge? Because number 3 narrows the population almost to zero. Welcome to Ballarat. Near Death Valley, Ballarat is sometimes described as having 1 or 2 caretakers at various times. It is hot, exposed, and dependent on long drives for essentials. Regulations may vary depending on land status, and safety is largely self-managed. The draw is stark simplicity. The reality is vulnerability. In extreme heat, distance becomes risk. Over months or years, that risk becomes psychological weight, because every small problem feels larger when no one is nearby. Imagine dry wind scraping across your face, sand shifting underfoot, and the horizon shimmering with heat that distorts distance. Would you call that solitude or strain? Number 2 challenges the assumption that empty equals failed. Welcome to Darwin. Darwin is not entirely abandoned. Reports often place its population under 50. It is unincorporated, quiet, and largely self-reliant. Utilities can be limited, cell services unreliable, and healthcare far away. Jobs are rare unless you do remote or self-created. The common assumption is that places like this are broken. The more complex truth is that some residents choose the silence. They value control over convenience. But choice carries weight, and without infrastructure, you are your own safety net. Picture pale morning light over desert hills, an afternoon so still it feels suspended, and night arriving without the glow of city lights. Would you choose autonomy, knowing it means less support? And finally, number 1, welcome to Cerro Gordo. High in the Inyo Mountains, Cerro Gordo once thrived as a silver mining town with thousands of residents. Today, it is privately owned and partially restored, with a handful of caretakers and ambitious plans. It appears on maps, yet it sits outside normal life. Access can be challenging in winter, restoration is costly, and water and utilities require constant attention. Safety regulations shape every decision. Unlike Bodhi, it is not frozen by the state. Unlike Calico, it is not purely a performance, and unlike Darwin, it is not simply quiet. It occupies an uneasy middle ground between revival and memory. This is where the earlier tension resolves. Some towns are not absent because they are forgotten. They are absent because bringing them fully back would demand more than romance. It would demand permanence, investment, and risk that few are willing to sustain. Living here would mean choosing responsibility over nostalgia. The beauty is real, but so is the labor. Picture cold mountain air at dusk, long shadows stretching across weathered wood, and the faint echo of footsteps where crowds once moved. The silence is not empty, it is evaluative. Would you rebuild something that may outlast your patience? None of these towns are secrets in the conspiratorial sense. They are trade-offs. Environmental constraints, regulatory frameworks, economic realities, and human limits quietly shape them. The map filters complexity, life does not. Now you know what the search bar does not show you. Not ghosts, but consequences. If this kind of measured perspective helps you see beyond the surface, subscribe and keep this as your quieter alternative when easy narratives start to feel incomplete. Because sometimes what disappears from the map is not a place. It is the illusion that every place can be revived without a cost.